There were two reasons why I joined. I wanted to help with that problem. It was one that impacted my community. It was one that impacted my family. It was one that the world had never seen before. And I thought there was a lot of good to be done and a lot of ways that technology could help our communities through this moment. I often say fast beats right, which is we can think all we want, but really if we don't move and take action, somebody's going to pass us by with faster learning. You may not know this, but I have very famously killed the industry of product management. Said product management's dead. Like, game over, friends. It may not be tomorrow and it may not be next year, but change is a coming.
Hi, Claire. It's great to meet you and to have you join us here with Products That Count today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we've got Claire, though, here from LaunchDarkly for your CPO finalist interview. But I'm super excited to just get to know you a little bit today, get to know your journey. You've been a CPO multiple times, so I know you've got a lot of wisdom and guidance to share with Products That Count.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Great. Well, maybe just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself. For those that maybe don't know Launch Darkly, maybe you can talk a little bit about your company in
Yeah.
particular and your journey to CPO.
Great. So I am actually the CPTO. So we can talk about the T
Ooh,
at LaunchDarkly. And I have the privilege of leading our full technology organization. So product management, engineering, design, data. I even have some incubation sellers in my organization. So it's a very unique and what I think is maybe kind of the future of product organizations. LaunchDarkly, for those that don't know, is the market leading feature management and experimentation platform where we really help amazing software development and product teams get great experiences into production, release them, monitor, and optimize over time. So I have been at LaunchDarkly for a little over a year now. I joined in early 2024. Prior to that, I was CPO at a company called Color Health. So if you were in the Bay Area and you got a COVID test, we probably did it. And I worked in at scale health tech, primarily focused on public sector and large enterprise. It was a very interesting turn through the healthcare and health tech industry, which I hadn't had experience in before. And then prior to that, I was CPO at a company called Optimizely. I That was the place that I had my first CPO role. So kind of came up through the leadership ranks at Optimizely after they had acquired a company that I was CEO and co-founder of called Experimentation. So I'm truly at heart a founder, and in addition to my role as CPO at LaunchDarkly, I am the founder of an AI company called ChatPRD.
wow. You have no shortage of things going on, and it's an
No.
incredible experience. I can't help but wonder, when you look at Optimizely and Launch Darkly,
Mhm.
it feels like a natural kind of progression.
Yep.
When you think about that detour through health tech, like what drew you to that?
You know, what's really interesting is a couple things. I decided to do pandemic work in the pandemic. You know, we
Mhm.
were all in this very intense moment where healthcare mattered at the front lines, and there were so many people trying to deliver life-saving, critical, widely accessed healthcare to entire populations. So COVID was something that impacted all of us. And there were two reasons why I joined Color. One, I wanted to help with that problem. It was one that impacted my community. It was one that impacted my family. It was one that the world had never seen before. And I thought there was a lot of good to be done and a lot of ways that technology could help our communities through this moment. The second reason why I went to Color is I was deeply impressed by the company's ability to pivot into a new problem space. So, you know, prior to our public health and population health work during the pandemic, Color was a genetic screening and testing company
Mhm.
and had a lab down in Burlingame. And I remember when I was interviewing, they told me they spent 3 weeks, completely reconfigured their lab, completely reconfigured their technology, and pivoted it to help the state of California and the city of San Francisco run their large scale testing programs. And I don't know if you remember this early day COVID, you could not get a test to save your life. I once was standing, I think in Sutter, with my sick kid, I had a 1.5-year-old at the time. That was the only place you could get a test. You were surrounded by people who were sick during this pandemic that no one knew what was happening. And you would get swabbed, and then like 5 days later, you would get a test result. And I noticed down the street that at Color, they had a public testing site at our farmer's market, down the street. And I could ride my bike with my kid 90 seconds, pull up on my bike. They would swab my nose, give me a QR code, and that same day I could get a result. And it was such a transformational experience at this moment where people were having very high anxiety, and their ability and will to pivot towards a problem and solve it with a combination of people, operations, technology, and science was really exciting to me. I also think healthcare teams and health tech teams were some of the hardest working teams during what others might look back on as the ZERP era. So while every other, SaaS had a pretty cushy ride in 2021 and 2022, I have never in my life worked harder than in health tech. And I think that pays off now as we're all sort of like experiencing this shift back maybe to normalcy or something different. So yeah, healthcare was a great experience for me.
Yeah, I love that. I love, wanting to make an impact and then
Mhm.
obviously, wanting to join a place that was so adaptable and
Yeah.
nimble, that was really focused on the customer.
Hi, this is Renee Nemi, Resident Chief Product Officer at Products Account. We're taking a quick break to chat with a friend of the show, Mighty Capital. GP of Mighty Capital, SC Mawadi, is here with me. SC, for listeners who don't know yet, what makes your approach different?
We're a product first venture firm, so we back enterprise founders where product is the growth engine. Our edge is what we call the CPO alpha effect, which is a data backed framework that helps us source, diligence, and help companies scale faster. That's how we backed category winners like Amplitude, Airbnb, Grok, and more.
Yeah, and the results speak for themselves. You celebrated your 6th IPO with Netscope recently, right?
We're so proud of the founders. And you're right, the goal is compounding product excellence. So over time, about 1 in 5 of our companies becomes an outlier.
Yeah, and you don't just write a check either.
Right. We plug teams into product, design partners, and our CPO fellows who roll up their sleeves on roadmap, pricing, and go to market so that teams hit milestones faster and raise on better terms.
So if I'm a founder building a B2B product, how do I engage?
Well, email me at sc@mighty.capital or message me on LinkedIn or X, and I'm happy to connect.
Awesome. Love it. Learn more at mighty.capital. Now back to the show.
Maybe going back even before that in your timeline, the other thing that obviously you kind of glossed over was, hey, I came into Optimizely because I was a CEO that got acquired. So what was your journey even leading up to that CEO role? And why'd you step in? What made you take the leap of faith?
Yeah, I've just generally had a pretty, what I would truly call a non-traditional path into technology. I'm a self-taught sort of like software developer, engineer, really didn't have access to the same kind of programs and schools that I think some of, like my kids being raised in San Francisco have access to. I got one of those like really lucrative liberal arts degrees they tell everybody to get, and actually started in tech as a copywriter. And the way I got into product was I realized very early that product is just words, and product is words trying to guide somebody to an outcome. And as somebody who writes a lot and got a liberal arts degree, I was like, I can write words. I can get people from point A to point B. And ever since then, I've really been problem guided by what I can do. Can I solve a problem for a user? Can I solve a problem for a business? Or can I learn a new skill that's getting in the way of me doing what I do? So I've, been a copywriter, a product manager, a UX designer. I've managed creative teams. I've managed data teams. I've led large growth marketing teams. I've had director of product roles. And I founded not one, but like a half dozen companies. So I'm a fourth generation female entrepreneur. my mother, my grandmother, and my great grandmother have all owned their own businesses. So I think it's a little bit in the blood. And when I see a problem that I think I can solve, I really want to go after it. And so now they weren't all good startups. So the one that was Experiment Engine, and it came out of my experience inside product organizations, knowing that A/B testing and experimentation can really make a difference to your business. And a lot of people don't do it as much as they should. And so it was around solving that problem. It was really great. Raised venture capital, ran that company for almost 3 years, and then it was acquired at Optimizely, where it still lives on today.
That's awesome. That is an incredible legacy. And I love that, like, you had all these women, right,
Yeah,
that were these great models kind of paving the path for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Well, tell me a little bit, given you aren't a first-time
Yeah.
CPO, right? How do you think the role has really changed and morphed over the years? And, what might you tell somebody who isn't yet a CPO but aspires to be one, is sort of the difference between being a product leader and being a CPO?
Yeah, I mean, really at the CPO level, anytime you have C in your title, and honestly, I think people don't appreciate this, but anytime you have a V in your title, you're a VP or a C level, you are no longer a functional leader. Like you have the function in the title of your name, but you are not a functional leader. You are a business leader. And your success is determined by your ability to positively impact the business end to end through high performance inside your function and unique insight and expertise within your function. So, as CPO, it is actually not job number one to make sure the product team runs well. It is job number one to make sure the company is successful and figure out the right ways for the product or technology organization to contribute to that success. So, I spend more of my time as a CPO outside the organization than in it. I'm spending time with revenue and with customers and with marketing, representing the product and engineering function, but operating in a much more cross functional way. I will also say at the C level, your position becomes much more market and external facing. And so, yes, you do all the internal stuff, but really you're a representative of the company to customers, to prospects, to the market. If you're in a public company, you're, to the public markets, and then honestly to candidates. So your visibility and your ability to track in talent through external presence becomes very important. So I think that's the difference at like sort of the leadership level is just
Yeah.
the focus, your focus becomes much less functional, more broad based, and you become much more externally facing. I think the other kind of thing that I've seen shift over this is now my third C something role is every role I have actually expanded the reach of my organization. So at Optimizely, I was CPO and I led product, user experience, DevRel docs, and growth. So those were some of the, but it was really a classic like PM UX product team sitting side by side with an engineering organization, really caring for the product roadmap, the vision, the execution there. At Color, I was the first time, not that I had engineering report to me, but the first time I had it as an executive, the full building function. So product design, engineering, and data. And I do think that you're starting to see more and more of these CPTO kinds of roles.
Definitely.
I certainly won't, very unlikely that I'll go back to the other way because I believe that the tension between product and engineering is a false tension. It doesn't have to exist. It does really help a CEO have a single, as I say, throat to choke on R&D investment, right? Functionally, like as a CPTO, I'm responsible for R&D investment. And I do think it's very healthy for a technology organization and a software company to have a single cultural identity in the organization. Not we have our engineering culture and our product culture. It's really great to have one culture. So that was the first time that I had that sort of broader engineering role. And then here at LaunchDarkly, I've expanded into as part of the go-to-market in terms of incubation sellers. So, it's shifted with my ability to again have a bigger impact. And the advice that I would give to folks looking forward is you're probably going to have to become one of two things to be a CPT or a CPO in the coming years. And it's either you're going to have to be very commercially minded or you have to become very technically minded, because I think those are two things that are really going to differentiate you at the C-suite level.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think it's advice I give to everybody. Like you got to start taking off your functional hat as you
Yeah,
become
totally.
more senior in the organization.
Yep.
You touched briefly on, you said incubation sellers. So
Yep.
you have the incubation products, number one, under you, I
Yep.
believe, and
Yep.
the market team. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yeah. So we have, as a company that is now 10 years in market, really great product market fit and an incredible growth in our core sort of like feature management and release management product. But we have more nascent products. We have actually, I'll say it differently. We have products of different maturity. These are like mid-maturity products. And then we have a bunch of new product lines that we're doing 0 to 1.
Yeah.
That kind of product building requires a very different kind of mindset and product team than someone that's scaling an existing platform into maturity. So one, we sort of organize our product management team to make sure that we have those 0 to 1 builders in the organization. Two, when we're going 0 to 1, we tend to be competing against startups. And you know what startups don't do? They don't have a separate revenue organization and a product organization. They have 10 or 20 people in a room all trying to solve the problem.
Right.
And so we've put incubation sellers in technology that sit very close to product engineering and design and marketing, who essentially are responsible for getting the product to its first N million dollars in revenue. And they sort of operate as an overlay sale to some of the revenue organization. They look for target customers, they incubate early onboarding and design partners. And it's been a really effective model for us to stay close to not just the products we're trying to build, but how we're actually trying to commercialize them.
Got it. And it sounds like this isn't a new muscle for you per se, because you've been a CEO before. You've had sales teams that you've led before.
Yeah.
But I think this is back to like, hey, if you step into this CPO role, you talked about sort of expanding your role. These are some of the ways in which you might expand it. Could be engineering, could be in the go-to-market org, in a strategy like this.
Yeah, and I mean, also, if you just take a step back and you don't have, this particular incubation model in your team, maybe you're a B2C company where that doesn't apply, or you have a revenue organization that has this sort of like 0 to 1 incubation motion, that's all fine. I do think, though, as a CPO, you have to understand the economics of your product. And, people, this is not romantic, and maybe aspiring CPOs won't love to hear this. When people ask what my job is, I say my job is to care for the investment in R&D so it generates enterprise value. That is actually my job. That's not like the inspiring, but like my job is to make sure that what we invest in R&D turns into enterprise value for the company. And then there's all these things about deep customer empathy and seeing the future and building a vision and raising a high talent bar team that allow us to do that. But if you don't understand that that's the job to be done, you're not going to build the commercial skills. You're not going to build the business acumen to contribute as the business leader responsible for the product function. So I really think it's very important for folks to understand that part of their job. It's not just the roadmap building. It's not just the features. It's not just the product. It is the business that you're building.
Yeah. So it sounds like the advice you'd give to people coming up through those ranks is lean into the business side, develop that financial acumen, because that is the job.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. I love that. Maybe touching again on your experience at having built these kind of organizations multiple times, what have you really learned about building and leading high-performing teams, and how have you really helped to kind of foster that culture in the organization?
Yeah, so I think you do have to be opinionated about what high performance means, and that might mean different things for different organizations. For me, the things that I bias towards is just raw speed. I often say fast beats right, which is we can think all we want, but really if we don't move and take action, somebody's going to pass us by with faster learnings. So I do bias towards people who are who move fast. I also bias people who are technically deep on their product area. I think it's really important to understand the how, what, and why. And then I really bias towards folks that have high agency and high sense of ownership. And I think that is an attribute that's very hard to coach into somebody,
Mhm.
but is very obvious when somebody has it. And some of the ways that I've been able to bring that talent into an organization is hire ex founders. That's a great way to do it. I think hire folks that are unafraid to learn. So, like curiosity, a demonstration of continued learning is a really great example. And then I think you want to reward the behaviors that you want to see. So, I always say, like, organize around motivated individuals. If I see a person or two demonstrating the operating principles and the way we want to operate in terms of the team, give them more. Like I say, load up talent, which as much as they're able to bear. And a good example of this is our SVP of product here at LaunchDarkly, Jen, who came in as a VP of product over just our core products. And she came in, snapped in, whipped that team into shape, then took on pricing and packaging, whipped that team into shape, then took growth, whipped that team into shape, then she took the full product function and now works, and I'm actually giving her that selling organization. And she's been here 9 months, but the more I gave her, the more impact she had. And I'm not going to say Jen can't take it. I'm just going to say let's load her up and see how much she can take. And so I do think that's an effective method for demonstrating if you have the right attributes and you contribute in a way that's meaningful to the business, you'll get more responsibility and therefore more reward.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's great to hear that from you
Mhm.
because I think a lot of times people think, "Hey, what's that path to getting promoted?" And they're so
Yeah,
focused on that as opposed to saying, "Hey, go do great
those are
things."
great things. Yeah.
And then leaders will recognize it, they'll give you more, and those
Yep.
other things will happen
Yep.
organically as a result of good work.
Totally. Yep.
Yep, I think that's great. Um, would love to maybe understand a little bit about the company culture. Would you
Mhm.
describe it as sales centered, finance centered, product centered? And how do you think that orientation kind of drives priorities and decisions about the product?
So you're the second person that asked me that question today. I did an
Ooh,
interview earlier and somebody else asked me that question. We're a product led company. There is just we sell software. As I say, like all opportunities are product opportunities and all problems are product problems at a software company. So we are certainly product led. We know what problems we're trying to solve for the market. We want to come with solutions that really drive value. We set the pace and vision for the revenue organization in terms of what direction we're going, the marketing organization in terms of what categories we can own from a user and customer centric product perspective. But I will say, shout out to my engineering team, we are a highly technical culture. So what I would say is like we're a product led company of highly technical nerds. So I think it's good to know like what the culture is in addition to like what's the organizing principles. And so what that means to be a product led culture is it means like I'm responsible for a lot. You
yeah,
know, if you want to be at a product led culture, then you have to take the accountability that all problems are your problems. Sales problems are product problems. Churn problems are product problems. Positioning problems are product problems. At the end of the day, people are going to be turning their eyes to you and saying, what do we do here? Because you're a product led. I will add one caveat though, which is I am one of the, I would say, number one sales apologists in the product leadership world.
hmm,
I think, again, how I think this like false tension between engineering and product doesn't have to exist. I think this false tension between sales and product doesn't have to exist. And I try to do a good job of two things in my organization. One, making sure that my team spends a lot of time with customers. I say PMs should be the number one sellers in the organization. They should be the closers in the organization because they know so much. And the second thing is I try to drive a lot of empathy for sellers in the product organization. It can be really easy if you're in B2B, throw your hands up and say, I've built all this great product. Why don't you just sell it?
right.
And I say, do you want to be on a quota? Do you want to earn? Do you want to hunt what you eat? Because I'm telling you, that is not a fun life. You get to take your salary home whether or not your product works or not.
Yep.
They don't get to take their, OTE home whether or not they close. And so trying to make sure that people understand how their peers across the company are compensated, what their challenges are, driving that empathy, I think is a really important part of being a company level product leader.
Is there anything that you've done, like with your product team in particular, to like orient them more towards the selling side?
Yeah.
Um,
So one of it is this like incubation motion has been very helpful on that.
mhm.
And so I'm working on an AI product line with our team. I'm actually the PM for that one. I'm working with an engineering manager, a tech lead, a user experience manager, and then this like one incubation seller. And I, kind of tell the engineering manager, look, you're not an engineering manager of a team in a big company just trying to ship product. You're
Mhm.
the CTO of our startup. And guess what the CTO of a startup's number one job is? Selling. Like you got to sell. So she
Yeah.
and the tech lead are doing customer demos, they're recording tutorials, they're getting on stage in front of our sellers at sales kickoff and getting them excited about the product. And so what I've sort of done is like tell these small incubation teams like think about what the actual job is, and your job is customer facing. I think the second thing is we've really tied our goals to revenue goals. And so like we're in it to win it together. It's not like my job was to ship the product, your job is to sell it. Is my job is to ship sellable product and we're going to go after this journey together. So that sort of like goals alignment has been very effective for the organization.
Yeah, yeah. I love the aligned incentives. The more you can
Yeah.
do that, we're all marching in the same
Yeah.
direction.
Exactly.
Um, so, obviously with those incubation teams, the zero
Mhm.
to one teams, they are intimately close to the customer.
Yep.
Then you've got these teams that are maybe on your more mature
Yeah,
product
yeah.
line.
Yep.
And I'm curious, like, for those teams, how do you keep those teams informed about customer needs? The sales is certainly one way.
Yep.
What else has been kind of effective for you?
Well, we're really lucky because at LaunchDarkly we build dev tools for engineering teams. And guess what? I run an engineering team. And so we are a incredible dog fooding
Yeah.
culture. We are probably actually I don't know if we're certainly not the most scaled user of LaunchDarkly because there are much larger organizations using it. But we bump up against the edges. So one, I do believe an intense dog fooding culture is really, really important. My expectation is that everybody, including VPs on my team, are in the product, using it, having an opinion. So that's one way we stay close to the user persona. The second thing that we do is a support rotation.
Mm,
So folks can come in and do just a technical support rotation. Again, drive empathy, understand customer problems, identify toil and friction points in the product, and then stay kind of continuously dissatisfied with the state of our product. We can always make it better. And then, the third thing I think we do quite well is we stay close to some of our largest customers on our most mature use cases. So, most of our engineers can prattle off names of engineers at our largest customers. They're spending time with them. Product managers, really do spend time with some of our largest customers, just building roadmap items that meet their needs.
yeah.
And so I'd say we approach it at a similar ethos, which is like very customer centric, high empathy. It's just the scale at which we focus is a little different.
Hmm. Yeah. I like that phrase you use, continuously dissatisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the right
Yep.
way to do it, and I
Yeah.
and I love that you are able to dog food your own
Yeah.
products. You're
Yep.
walking a mile in the customer's
Yep.
shoes.
Exactly.
So, sounds like you're always innovating,
Yep.
but and again, I think compare that zero to one is a little different than your
Yep.
more scaled
Yeah.
teams. For the more scaled teams, which probably resonates with more people, right? That's what a lot of
Yeah.
folks are dealing with.
Yep.
How do you think about, that balance between, hey, we're in the weeds day to day, there's things
Yep.
customers need right now, especially those large customers, you might have bugs, and how you invest towards the future?
Yeah. So there's a couple things that we do. One is I tell people this. They always ask, what's the right mix of investment between keep the lights on and core feature management and new or core product and then new product lines. And I say the ideal portfolio mix depends on the season.
Mm-hmm.
And what you need to do is have a regular cadence at which you purposefully reassess that mix and then make some intentional decisions and then communicate those decisions to people so that they know what's going on. And so, we could come out of a phase where we say, look, really the number one existential challenge in the product organization is that, just for example, our largest customers are running into scale issues, they're blowing up support, it's becoming a churn issue, and we need to shift and a meaningful amount of focus on just solving that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a season. And then we can get out of that season and, as we have right now, shift 65-70% of resources to new product development because we really believe that the core is stable, that we have a innovation plan there that is right sized, and the opportunity for us and for our customers are in these new product lines. But we're explicit about it. We say, look, this year, this is where we're allocating, this is how teams are focused. These things are still important, but sequentially, now it's critical to work on these other things. And so I do think that continual reassessment, tying it to a strategy, and then communicating to the team so they don't feel whiplashed around stuff is quite important.
Yeah, and I think it's probably even broader than just communicating it. I'm sure when you're saying communicating the team, it's your team, so you don't want them to feel whiplash.
Yeah,
But maybe it's the revenue teams, right?
totally.
Maybe this may not be the season for these big
Yeah.
flashing features.
Yep, exactly. And people just want to know and they want to have a sense of where you're going so they can plan around it. So that's how I've pursued it. I think it's been pretty effective. I will say there are it's very rare that there's less than 30 to 40% of investment going to like the new.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where the growth comes from at a company of our stage. But it can that piece can swing much higher than that.
Yeah, but it's a good gut check to say, hey, maybe this is the right floor.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of go up from there,
exactly.
depending on where we're at seasonally. Now, again, I think it wouldn't be a good session if we didn't capitalize on your experience. So I'm curious, like, you've had this incredible background in all of these experimentation kind of driven platforms. So how do you see AI changing maybe the way product teams experiment, iterate, and optimize?
Yeah. Well, I have 2 points of view here. The first one is you're just going to be able to move faster. You're going to be able to move faster. You're going to be able to build more stuff, and it's going to be a lot cheaper to build it. So if you don't take advantage of that right now and over the next couple of years, you will be out experimented and outperformed. So I think the reality is your pace of experimentation and the available surface area for you to experiment on is really accelerated by the way AI is inflecting output for product and engineering teams. So you just do more experimentation. And then this is a little gift to me. You're asking me this question because I am actually working. The product that I'm PMing right now for the team is our product around experimenting on AI experiences. So I think more and more products are going to be AI powered products. Those products are by nature of these large language models, non-deterministic, as they say in the biz. And therefore your outputs of experimentation, your surface area for experimentation becomes broader, and your abilities to measure experimentation become more nuanced. But I do think there's going to be this surface area of experimentation on AI products to drive quantitative measures of performance, quality, and cost, as well as qualitative measures of customer satisfaction and good experience. So I think there's a lot of really interesting work that's going to go there. We're building a lot of interesting product there. And I think product managers who are going to build AI products are going to need to think about that quite a bit.
So can you talk a little bit about maybe example customer or somebody you might be working with that's adopting, this new product you're developing and what they're going to get from it?
Yeah, so we're working with some early stage, because I worked in health, we're working with some healthcare companies, and healthcare is really benefiting from AI in a really meaningful way because there is so much operational friction and cost that goes into medical workflows, claims processing. There's just a tremendous amount of data. It's hard to parse, and a lot of people are involved. And so they're getting a lot of benefit, even in internal tooling, around adopting AI at scale. And so you'd be surprised, you'd think that healthcare would be a lagging industry in terms of AI adoption, but it's actually a leading industry in terms of AI adoption. But they sort of started these programs as experiments. Oh, we'll just see if we can do X, Y, and Z, or we'll see if we can do. And they've chosen models based on what's available that day. They've written their prompts based on their best knowledge. And there's two problems. One, they don't know that their AI flow is optimized. They don't know. And is this the best it could be? Could it be better? And so they're now trying to figure out, how do I optimize it? And two, it is costing an extraordinary amount of money. So they're I mean, 8 figures of spend a month.
Wow.
A month
Wow.
on running commercial models. And the models are coming out so quickly. The technologies are changing so quickly. They're not able to optimize if they don't have a really dynamic platform on which they can adjust. So LaunchDarkly's AI configs is allowing them to, without modifying their code, really test prompt and model parameters, prompting techniques, other things to say, you know, do I need to be using 4.0 here, or can I use 4.0 mini? Can I optimize? Can I use an open source model here? Can my prompt reduce the number of tokens that are generated? Can it be faster? And they're trying to solve those problems, not with vibes, but real numbers. And so that's where some of LaunchDarkly's product is coming into play.
I love that. So it sounds like you're providing sort of an abstraction layer into these underlying models.
Yep.
And then you're able to actually kind of measure results.
Measure them. And run A/B tests and experiment, or even target, things like, great, your paying customers get the expensive models, and your free, trial customers get a little cheaper one.
Yeah. Upgrade, buy more.
Yeah.
No, I think that sounds great. Maybe then pivot that into product management. I think with product management, right, it too is, hey, how can I use AI tools to move faster?
Yep.
And maybe given also your unique seat in leading an engineering organization, would love to see how you see product management today, and maybe engineering today, and how do you think that's going to develop over time, especially with the use of AI?
Well, you may not know this, but I have very famously killed the industry of product management. Said product management's dead. Like, game over, friends. It may not be tomorrow, and it may not be next year, but change is a coming. So I have had a pretty strong point of view on this for at least the last 18 months, that I think fundamentally the job that most product managers do today, if you polled middle of the bell curve product manager, is either going to go away, be replaced tools, or like change in a really dramatic way. And one of the things that I tell my team about building product is, I say, I am not building the roadmap for products for the market today. I am looking forward and saying, what do I believe the market's going to look like in 24 months, 48 months, 10 years? I have to build the roadmap that gets us there. And I think the same with careers and organizations. I cannot say, how should product managers be today? Sure, I can have some opinions, data-driven, technical, fast. I have to go, what are product managers going to need to look like in 24 months or 5 years? What are product orgs going to look like? And then I got to build that team. And so I've been somewhat on the leading edge of some of that thought and some of that tooling. So again, I built this product called ChatPRD, AI Copilot for PMs. I think it's the #1 product for product managers using AI by usage. So I really thought deeply about how to power the product experience with AI, writing documents, building plans, prototyping, all those things I think can be done much, much, much faster now. And so I do think there's probably a couple evolutions of the role that I believe are good bets to place. One, the role shifts into more of a hybrid role. So if you take my CPTO role and you just push it a little further down the organization to the IC role, it's like, who's the person who can a little bit of engineer, a little bit of designer, a little bit of product manager. I'm playing with the idea of calling it an experience engineer or an experience manager who really cares for the building of the experience, and has that more technical angle. And then there's, of course, the PM as GM model, much more commercially driven. But as I tell my PMs, not like, haha, yeah, you run the fake P&L, I write OKRs down and see. It's like, you want variable comp? Like, you set your
Yeah.
goals, you're compensated very differently. There's a lot of upside, but this isn't, monopoly money. You're actually the commercial GM for these products. And I think those are two models that I think are probably inevitable. And I think there will be very narrow sets of product managers that do some of the work as we define it today, because I think it's going to become too narrow.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I was
Yeah.
playing with Bolt recently,
Yeah.
a fun application to play with.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in a minute,
Yeah. In a
I,
minute.
I am able to start designing and building an
Wow.
application. Is
So
it
what do
that
you do with your
fun?
other minutes?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It is truly incredible.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it'll be fun. I think I'm generally an optimist. So when I say product management is dead, I kind of mean it. And I think, how many more interesting, creative human problems can we go solve with that time?
yeah,
And that's sort of where I think there's going to be more abundance, more innovation, more just really cool problem solving things in the world. And I think people can get excited about that, but they've got to start coming to terms with like, stuff is changing.
yeah, yeah. And I think when you say it right, it's those skills are
Yeah,
reusable,
totally.
right? But you just have to be willing to embrace that change,
Yeah.
as you said. And then the great thing is, and I'm a big believer in the abundance as well,
Yep.
because the barriers to entry become so much lower,
Yep.
right? I don't need the coding skills. I
Yep.
don't have to know how to use Figma.
Yep.
Then now you can take all these ideas and
Yep.
just see more of them come to
Yep.
life.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I am right there with you. I think it's an exciting time. Well, I maybe have one more topic for you since we're talking about teams.
Yep.
Um, so another common discussion really is, hey, post-pandemic,
Yep.
are you living in a remote world? Are you living in a hybrid world? Are you back to office full time?
Yep.
So let's start there, and then we can kind of dig through
So
that a bit.
yeah, so we are a hybrid organization. We are distributed by default, and that we hire all over the world. My team is 50% West Coast, 35% Bay Area. So we have got a big kind of PT time zone cohort, but we're all over the United States, a sprinkle in Europe, and then we have a team that we just acquired that's in Bangalore. So
Oh,
we are a truly distributed team.
yeah.
And that includes across our revenue organizations. We're distributed with the San Francisco headquarters. I will say I take pride in being a distributed slash hybrid slash remote executive. And I will
Mhm.
say, being an executive in a distributed or remote environment requires a set of skills that I think many leadership teams have underinvested in.
Hmm.
And so I have tried to overinvest in asynchronous communication, culture building through remote forums, how to run a remote meeting, how to communicate, share culture, what's the right time to bring people together, how do you set programs and budgets aside for hub-based, co-working and all this. I've thought a lot about how I not just be an executive leader, but I be an executive leader for a hybrid team. I think it's really important. So that's where we are. I've thought a lot about it, but I think it is a bumpy road for a lot of organizations right now. I think it is very hard to put the genie back in the lamp
Yep.
on hybrid, because no one's gonna. People want to get together. I do think, especially in creative fields, and we're in a creative field, getting time together is really important, is generative. And very few organizations right now, I think, are willing to like go through the pain of making a shift from hybrid back to office, because they want to keep great talent, and we all like our remote working environment. So I think it's really tricky for people right now. The one thing I'll say is I feel really blessed to have been in healthcare during the pandemic, because we were hybrid the whole time.
Hmm.
And we had a much less bumpy return to reality because we had never whiplashed fully the other way.
Right.
And actually, that's been my experience with a lot of my peers in healthcare is, it was tough times and people worked very hard, but it wasn't the amplitude was not so high between now and then. So I think that's been one benefit of being in healthcare is I learned how to do remote, but we kept kind of the culture a little hybrid for the most part.
And I think that the tricky piece about putting the genie back in the bottle,
Mhm.
right, is I tend to think like you. People want to spend time together. And actually, when you get
Yeah.
people together, they're often like, oh, this feels so good,
Yeah.
right? But it's that whole act of getting out of your sweatpants and
Yeah.
putting on your presentable clothes and,
Totally.
trying to handle the data, the drop-offs and the pickups of your
Totally.
kids and just life.
Yeah.
So, what things have you done to try to get people to shift that culture to saying, hey, this is a value add, as opposed to this feels like a hammer kind of coming down.
Hammer. Well, I mean, one, we've done no hardline return to office policies. So we've certainly done like more carrots than sticks in terms of we have this stunning San Francisco office that I say is like working in a CB2 showroom. It is like so lovely. We've got like the best croissants in the city on the first floor. Like, you know what? Sometimes it's nice to put on our hard pants and our big girl bag and like get a latte and sit in a
Yeah.
fancy office. Like sometimes that's good. So one, we have this like lovely office that's open to people. Two, we try to get the leadership team together at minimum on a quarterly basis. And by leadership team, I basically mean like our VP plus cohort. So it's across the organization beyond the executive teams. We do that once a quarter for an entire week. It's not too much of a lift on, people's families and stuff like that, but it allows us to get together meaningful time and discuss, business opportunities. And then we also have sort of in a more distributed mode, I've implemented a very simple budget for accessing co-working budget.
Hmm.
So while we have a San Francisco hub, we have a little cohort in Seattle and LA and New York and Boston and Austin. And those people have teammates in their city that they could get together with, but they have no place to go. And so I've opened up budget out of my, T&E budget. So you can access T&E budget for co-working space. And the cost of entry is this. You have to take a cute selfie of you and the team and send it in Slack. Like we got to see you working together.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's a combination of like attracting people with amenities, attracting people with just interesting business impacting discussions and just opening up budget so people can get together. And then just trying to use that as a way to foster connectivity and social cohesion and trust inside the team. So those are some of the things that I've tried.
I love that because who doesn't have a little FOMO, right? Who doesn't want to
Yeah,
have a lovely croissant, work with their
totally.
peers, talk a little shop, and then that goes a
Yeah.
long way in those times that you aren't able to connect.
Yeah, the other real carrot we have is we have a twinning channel where we take
Ooh.
pictures when we dress like each other. So you can sometimes we get a Zoom where like these two people on Zoom are the same. But like it's kind of funny. My chief of staff and our CMO, every time in their office, are dressed exactly the same. I don't know why. They're totally different type of people. And so like, just trying to create humanity in the team,
Yeah.
like a little humor, a little fun. And I do think it is not healthy for individuals to be at their house all day, every day. I do think it's good for both teamwork and individuals to just get a little connection. So I'm hoping we're making it appealing to do so.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Claire, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with us today. It's been great to talk everything from your journey to these leadership roles to encouraging us, to get out of the house, out of our sweatpants and get back in the office a little bit.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the time that you spent with Products That Count.
Thanks, Denise. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.